va bien? Ah. Merci de les avoir accueillis.
Monsieur le Président, qu'est-ce que vous en dites?
Non, je suis toujours long.
Ah, je vais saluer les Cévennes.
Non, pas tout.
Monsieur le Président de la République, les honneurs militaires vous ont été rendus par un détachement composé de la musique de la garde républicaine, du drapeau du 1er régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine, d'une compagnie du 1er régiment et une compagnie du 2e régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine. L'ensemble est placé sous les ordres du colonel Richard Elliot, commandant le 1er régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Portez. Arme. À gauche. Gauche. En avant. Marche.
faut que je pose.
Il y a tout un groupe de députés européens.
Vous allez bien?
Bravo, extraordinaire défi, monsieur le Président.
Merci à vous.
Grandiose.
Tu vas bien? Comment vas-tu? Merci à vous. Tu vas bien? Tu es en forme?
Encore une marche. Voilà, super. Ne casse pas les figures.
J'ai connu la maman. Tu vas bien? Oui. C'est extraordinaire, président. Extraordinaire. Thank you for your
You go on the stairs so we can do a picture. Sur les marches, comme around the Tu n'es que ancienne ministre.
C'est vrai, franchement, je suis qu'une merde, moi. Elle est chier,
Monsieur le ministre, Jean-Noël.
Valérie. T'es dans la photo, c'est pour ça.
Je peux aller devant.
Oui, mais c'est normal. Pour leur job.
Tu te colles pas, mais pas à moins de 3 mètres, tu ne fais pas.
Attends, je passe 2 secondes là. On commence.
Voilà, vas-y, vas-y, vas-y.
Enfin, c'est surtout que là, c'est le moment où j'en peux plus.
Ça reste tranquille. Tu fais un petit large, à un moment ça marche, tu le fais, sinon ça marche pas.
Je peux aller là?
Non, mais tu
Donc,
peux,
je suis à ce point-là.
attends, tu t'approches pas. There are moments in the life of a nation when change happens gradually, almost imperceptibly. And then there are those moments 10 years later, we look back and suddenly realize that an entire country has changed direction. I believe the last decade has been one of those moments for France. For generations, France has been admired around the world for its culture, its literature, its scientific achievements, its creativity, its art of living, and of course for teaching all of humanity that a meal could be a 3-hour intellectual exercise. But there was also a persistent stereotype. France was often perceived as a country that came up with brilliant ideas and then watched others turn them into global businesses. Then something remarkable happened. A new generation emerged, generation of founders, builders, dreamers, and risk takers. A generation that no longer believed that innovation belonged exclusively to Silicon Valley or anyone else. And among those who understood this transformation before many others was Emmanuel Macron, the President of the Republic. When he understood that in the 21st century, prosperity, influence, and even sovereignty would increasingly depend on innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology. It is often said that leadership consists of seeing what others do not yet see. This is called vision. Well, he had it. He wasn't the only one, but he got it. And this vision found one of its most visible and lasting expressions in an adventure called Vivatique. When Vivatique was launched in 2016, it was an ambitious idea. And he doubted that France could truly compete with the major global technology hubs that were already established. Emmanuel Macron believed in it. He was the Minister of the Economy, and he said, "Go for it. I support you." I still remember the enthusiasm generated by Emmanuel Macron's early support for Vivatique. In fact, I always considered him to be the boss. I always thought he set me goals, but he didn't go fast enough. He didn't go far enough. When are you going to beat the CIS? That's right. The boss, his message resonated particularly well because it embodied an ambition. The ambition to send a clear signal to the world. France was open to innovation, open to entrepreneurs, open to bold ideas. Victor Hugo wrote, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." In hindsight, you could say that Vivatech was precisely that. An idea whose time had come, but ideas don't succeed alone. They need champions. Emmanuel Macron was one of its champions. 10 years later, the results speak for themselves. Vivatech has become one of the largest and most influential tech gatherings in the world. And the influence is significant, if I may say so. Every year, Paris welcomes company founders, investors, researchers, engineers, scientists, CEOs of major companies, and heads of state. The biggest names in tech come here, as do the most promising startups. What started as a bold French initiative has become a benchmark, a global reference, and perhaps one of the most powerful symbols of France's tech renaissance. Over the past decade, France has seen the birth of world-class tech companies. Investments have reached unprecedented levels. French entrepreneurs have built global companies, and perhaps most importantly, a new entrepreneurial culture has emerged. Today, countless young graduates no longer dream solely of joining the administration, becoming civil servants, or large companies. Many dream of creating them. This change is perhaps the greatest success of all. When the term startup nation, for which he is responsible, entered the French debate, reactions were, let's say, mixed. But after thousands of startups created, billions invested, dozens of unicorns appearing, so many jobs created, and millions of lives transformed by innovation, reality has finally provided its own definition, added own definition. An ecosystem also needs role models, and in this respect, France has been particularly lucky. Stammer. Over the last decade, we have witnessed the emergence of an extraordinary generation of entrepreneurs. Not only have they created their companies, but today they are investing in young founders. They support new generations, they finance new ideas, and they pass on their experience in many ways. They are the gardeners of innovation of the future. They are planting seeds whose fruits they may never reap themselves. Their contribution to the transformation of France has been immense, and we are now entering the era of artificial intelligence. It is a fundamental technology like electricity or the internet. It will transform healthcare, education, industry, communication, public services. Yes, we can hope for it, or we can daily lives. The opportunities are immense, extraordinary, and the stakes have never been higher. Here again, France has chosen ambition. And here again, Emmanuel Macron has constantly defended the idea that Europe should not be content to consume technologies invented elsewhere. Europe must invent, build, and be competitive. This is not an easy ambition. The emergence of French companies, by chance, like Amilab, the remarkable excellence of French mathematics and engineering, the quality of universities and research laboratories, as well as the growing attractiveness of France for international talent, demonstrate that this ambition is no longer a dream. It is becoming a reality. Of course, none this happened automatically. It took entrepreneurs willing to take risks, researchers willing to explore the unknown, investors willing to believe, and above all, political leadership willing to create the conditions necessary for innovation to flourish. This contribution is often the least visible. It is often one of the most important. Despite the global competition for our share of the future, France has not given up its identity. It has enriched. France remains a nation of culture, a nation of creativity, a nation of ideas, but it is now also a nation of entrepreneurs, innovators, engineers, and technological pioneers. Allow me, and forgive me, Mr. President, to quote Winston Churchill, who said, "The empires of the future are empires of the mind." The most valuable resources are found in laboratories, in universities, in startups, in research centers, in the imaginations of young people who decide to create something that has never existed before. That is why the choices made over the past decade matter so much. Today, as we celebrate a Viva Texan anniversary, we are celebrating much more than an event. We are celebrating a transformation of ambition, confidence, and mindset. We are celebrating the entrepreneurs who dared, the investors who believed, and the countless talented women and men who have helped make France one of the world's leading technology ecosystems. The story of French technology continues to be written. The next chapter belongs to a new generation of entrepreneurs, engineers, scientists, and dreamers. But when they look back on the origins of this extraordinary momentum, they will undoubtedly remember a period when France chose confidence over hesitation, ambition over caution, and innovation over inaction. They will remember the role played by a president, Emmanuel Macron, who believed well before it became obvious that France could once again become one of the world's great drivers of innovation. Because deep down, great startups are not always companies. Sometimes they are nations that reinvent themselves. And over the past decade, France has done precisely that. Thank you, Mr. President, for welcoming us. Thank you for everything you have done for France, for French tech, and for future generations who, thanks to you, will benefit from a more promising future. Thank you. Pushkin could not have written that.
Must congratulate. Move the bollards there, everyone. You are very crowded. Remove those things there and come closer together. It's weird, this thing. It's hot. And it seems that it's even hotter outside. Right? So after that, we'll be able to open it and you can go into the garden. Maurice said it all, basically. He said a lot of good things, but that's not why you're here. Well, what? No. First of all, Mr. Vice Chairman of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, minister, ladies and gentlemen, parliamentarians. Parliamentarians, elected officials, and the Director General of the BPI. Dear Maurice, dear friends, I'm very happy to have you here. Since I couldn't spend the usual time at the Vivet event this year, because first of all, it was more constrained with the G7, and on top of that, we had Prime Minister Morit and Prime Minister Salam here. I thought to myself, let's welcome you here. It's the best possible opportunity. And it's also celebrating your 10th anniversary. Maurice gave me far too much credit. I find that I actually feel like I belong to this collective generation. And what we have done it all together. We are doing it all together, each and every one of us in our place. And it is this human chain that makes it possible. And so I wanted to say a huge congratulations and a very big thank you and say a few words about the future. No more, I can assure you. First of all, I want to thank everyone who made this possible. Maurice, first and foremost, who was crazy enough to and then all the Vivatech teams, because they're all the teams that work around Maurice. And it's true that I took them. It was the first time that the French government went to CES in Las Vegas. There were several of you. It was January 2015. Well, you thought it was great. Then we did it on the spot. I came back and said, it's not possible that we don't have the equivalent here. You guys tell me you have to go to Barcelona when you want something a little less popular in Europe. He says, let's go. And in 10 years, you've done it. You've established Vivatech on the global scene. You've done it through your energy, your ability to invite people. I'll come back to that, but because there's an ecosystem that has exploded, that was there, that was just waiting for us to reveal it, to show it off. I also thank all the partners who have always believed. LVMH with its group, the Parisian Publicist, AWS, Arch La Poste, BN, Paribas. I haven't forgotten anyone, Maurice. It's a way of not having any trouble if I have forgotten one. So thank you very much. Every year, I greet you again yesterday, so normally I'm good. And in 10 years, have you really managed to establish this event? I think there were more than 180,000 last year. So how many this year? 15,000 startups, more than 170 countries in 10 years. It has become the biggest event. And I am very happy that this year we had our German friends as special guests. I salute the companies that are here tonight. And we did indeed have Germany as our guest of honor after several countries in recent years, but this European focus is slow. And basically, as we saw, we had Germany as our guest of. Oberat Innovates was there with hundreds of our friends and our Indian startups, and the entire world gathered with many ministers who came one after the other. Behind Vivate, it is the success of the French ecosystem that I want to celebrate with this 10th anniversary. And indeed, these are the talents, the women and men, the researchers, the entrepreneurs, all your teams who are big and who have been there for a long time. Because we have this capacity, we have trained talents for a long time in France. Once a story. I have often said that entrepreneur is a French word, despite what Anglo-Saxons may think. And during this decade, well, you have exploded. The figures are there to prove it. More than 18,000 startups, 4,500, more than 500,000 direct jobs. We are at 36 unicorns. I think we are even behind in terms of figures, with 33 born in the last 8 years. And unicorns are even more relevant because you want to go much further, and the figures are much higher. It's behind talents, many of whom have returned from the United States or elsewhere. These are our startups that have raised 19 billion euros, and between 2021 and 2025, 48 billion. By 2025, it alone, over 7 billion. This is the new French tech Next Fortil 120 promotion, which is worth more than 11 billion euros in revenue. And it is Mistralos, Amilabs, Pascal Kobli, Alice Akotoli, Balan, Wondercraft, Pharmatan, Command, etc., etc. These are data centers. These are projects. It is a force that has become unstoppable. And I could go on for a very long time. So I've prepared a very, very strong and detailed speech for me, but Maurice has already said a lot. And basically, I just wanted to go back over a few things and talk to you about the future, because now I have just told you about everything we have done in 10 years that was already there. And the accumulated experience that you are passing on to the younger generation. But where are we now? Where is the battle? Let's look at the life of a nation as well as the life of an entrepreneur. Everything has to be continued, or rather, everything has to be redone. We are strong, much stronger than we were 10 years ago. Much stronger. We are much stronger than even we ourselves realize. That's what strikes me. Every time I speak to journalists, when I speak in the country, we have extraordinary strength. We are number one in startup. We are number one in artificial intelligence by far in Europe. We are creating jobs, talent, and investment. But we can clearly see that there are still too many people who have doubts. There is uncertainty, and at the same time, the world is accelerating, and we can see it on the quantum astronomy. So I just have a few very simple messages to pass on to you. I have 4 or 5 priorities for the coming months for me, but for all of us in the coming years. First, do not give up on what we gained over these 10 years. Don't really give up on anything. That is to say, we have done all this because we have been able to build an ecosystem, a culture, and a macroeconomic framework that was relevant. That wasn't a given 10 years ago. We must not let it be unraveled in the budget debates of the coming months, nor in the debates during the next presidential elections. And that is our fight. It must be your fight too, because we must explain that none of this is possible without this framework. I hear everyone now coming to the rescue of the wonderful AUP up. It's as if it were for whom. But the same people say it's great for that. But 6 months ago, they said we should tax success. And they will come back and say we should tax those who succeed. We should tax the capital that is invested. It's very bad. We should do this or that. But had we not created that macroeconomic framework, we could not have done all this. That is the flat tax. That is simplifying labor rules. That is having a tax policy that put us back in the European competition, and at the same time, a culture of risk. That is celebrating those who succeed, not stigmatizing them, and at the same time helping and recognizing the experience gained by those who have just failed. If we return to a country ashamed of risk, pointing at those who succeed to demand everything at once, and stigmatizing those who lost to immediately cry out that everything is collapsing. We'll go back 10 steps. What makes us strong? What keeps you here? These 10 years of Vivatech, this decade of French tech, then revealed by France 2030, by ourselves, our funds, and so on, is because we have changed this culture. It is always fragile. We must not give up. And so keep fighting for it. I will be by your side, but we must not give up on this matter, because we must continue to move faster, stronger. The second thing is that we must all scale up together, and the right scale is the European scale. That is why I am very keen to have our animators here this year, because we are fighting for, and thank you, Mr. Vice President of the Commission, for being here, the European choice in terms of tech for a European preference. And of course, we have the I Choose French program with our major groups, but we want to extend it to Europe with Choose European Tech. And our battle is European for you, in each of your areas, allowing you to have a domestic market that is European, because it allows you to scale up faster, to have European funding, to have a real market, a European firepower. And so we have to do this together. That means we have to bring other ecosystems on board with us. We have done this several times with our Skylab tours and so on, with the summit we held in Berlin a few months ago, but we must not give up. Governments are a little behind you, and so we must redouble our efforts to be on a European scale. The third thing is funding. And we can clearly see this. In the AI battle, like the others, We've done a lot, built our tickets, and fought hard. We created the TB1 and TB2 funds and tried to bring them to a European level. We need to continue to accelerate because we are the best in Europe, but we are still far behind the Americans or the Chinese. And so the battle for funding is key. This morning, the ministers announced the Tibadiba 3 fund with euro 13 billion euros already committed and signed. The goal is autumn 15 billion euros, with particular focus on Tibet, but not only that. And so this is to continue to accelerate. Well, we are taking from institutions, we put it towards innovation, towards risk, towards you. But we must continue to increase our efforts in terms of funding. What does that mean? Well, this TB fund means at the European level, we are launching this year the large securitization fund. It means capital market union to have a real European financing capacity. And what we have been able to do in healthcare, what we have been able to do in other sectors in the recent years with our large funds, well, we need to increase and accelerate it. And alongside that, we need to have a budget. I just got back from Brussels, we fought for this. A European budget that is the right size. That is to say, we need to almost double it. Alongside traditional policies, we need to invest in policies for the future and innovation. Space, AI, quantum, and green tech in particular, which are very. Of course, when I talk about this commitment, I am not forgetting the funding for defense and security, which Europe has started to do, but we need to increase it. And therefore, funding is our main battle. And the fourth one, which is key for me, is building our independence. And what is at stake, and that's what I want to see tonight, is that our French and European independence. Everyone talks about it every day, but people don't see enough in the public debate that is through innovators, that the capacity to be independent tomorrow is built. Because if tomorrow we don't have a French and European solution for AI, quantum, major defense technologies, crypto or other technologies, the cloud, etc., you've listed all your sectors for me. I know you're great salespeople. And we will be able to delegate our capacity because we will be consumers of a technology made by others. And so it's a battle for our independence. And there, nothing is decided. And so in the coming years, we'll have to relaunch the effort on semiconductors. That's what we did with the CHIPS Act. We're relaunching it. We're giving it new impact. On July 1, I will be in the Netherlands with the President of the Commission, the Chancellor, and the head of the Dutch government alongside ASML and the entire semiconductor ecosystem. Because here, we need Europe that protects and invest much more, because that is the key to our independence. And that is what we have done here in recent years with our partnerships with Foxconn and NVIDIA. We are building independence. We are reducing all dependencies because we are building here what has been imported from the United States, or in this case, Taiwan. The second thing we are going to do is have an independent strategy. We need to move faster, and that is computing centers, data centers. This battle is key. And we have a chance. We have energy available. We have exported 90 terawatts each year for the last 2 years. And basically, our strategy is to convert this energy into computing capacity, and then transform this computing capacity into an LLM model, into training or creation capacity for you in all your fields to move much faster. This strategy is fundamental, and it is the one we are succeeding in. Today, we are the leader in data centers in Europe. Thanks to this, we have accelerated. We are moving faster, but we must keep accelerating as we are still far behind the Americans and Chinese. But in the last 18 months, we have reduced the gap, particularly with the latest Ziua Franței, because of the 93 billion euros of investment in our country. That is a lot of that. And so it is obviously all that is done with MGX, SoftBank, Brookfield, Ardian, Hopcore, Eclairon, and so on. I could name some. They are French, they are European, they are Canadian, they are Emiratis, they are Japanese. And you see here that in a way we have a galaxy that also creates our independence in terms of computing capacity, because we are not 100% dependent on the Americans, because we are not 100% dependent on hyperscalers. That is to say, we create computing capacity that will not be entirely consumed, that we also take for ourselves. And that is fundamental. And behind that, what we want is for us to use our computing capacity for your ecosystem to create value. Jobs move up the value chain to enable to multiply the creation of champions in energy, in healthcare, in many sectors. And then, alongside that, it is obviously our strategy for adopting AI, and it is fundamental, and it's also a strategy of sovereignty, because it's, in fact, in a way, the sovereign end to end, that is to say, having the capacity to disseminate AI and this innovation throughout our ecosystem of large groups and SMEs. And by doing that, well, we obviously create much more value and productivity at home, but we also create an ecosystem that has its own domestic market. And that's key to our strategy. That's exactly what's at the heart of our desire to focus on LLM models and frontier models. Of course, Maurice talked about Mistral. It's impossible not to talk about it. We defend them a lot. And why do we defend them? Because we're the only ones in the world, along with the Canadian Zenko here, and I think we're a little better at the moment than that. And so, in reality, we're the only ones in the competition who are neither American nor Chinese. And that's fundamental. So what do we need to do for Mistral to win? Well, to help administrative clients, to give them government contracts, French and European companies, and in this respect, the partnership that we have forged between SAP and Mistral, for example, is key. That's what will give them the accelerated capacity and raise funding to have computing capacities between Mythos 5 and Fable 5 and the latest Mistral model. It's about a ratio of 1 to 15 on the computing capacities in training AI. It's not a technological breakthrough. It's not that they're smarter. They've invested a lot more money. They've mobilized 15 times more computing power. But it's up to us to rush to mobilize them and therefore to find them, to continue to build them, to go and get them, to find funding faster because it's a race against time, and to go into the field to multiply them. That's fundamental. And we can win this race. It is key with its partnerships, and so I need you all with this funding and its capacity. And that also goes hand in hand with the whole battle for open source, because of course there is the race for LLMs, frontier models, and then there is open source, which will also allow us to create other innovations. And so we have to go on both legs, frontier model and open source. And on frontier models, we are launching a Franco-German initiative with the European Commission to wake everyone up very quickly and say within 2 months how much funding, what new actions we need to take, because we can't act as if nothing happened 8 days ago. And so what are we doing today? We are negotiating with the Americans to reopen. We are saying, yes, it's risky. It's good that you realize it. But the right reaction is not to close it to your friend. But on the other hand, we have to run fast. And then the other point that I also want to mention here is quantum. And in quantum, I want to emphasize this. It is obviously fundamental for computing capacities, obviously for cryptography, many key areas. But in quantum, France is in the race. And they're among the 3 or 4 nations that can win this race, where it is not yet decided, where we are going to say we are the first Europeans. No, we are among the world leaders. That is why we have announced the $1 billion more again, compared to the strategy. That is why here too, I am pushing for us to have a European component of this strategy. But the Candelas, Alice and Bob, Pascal, C1, Cobley, and so on, they are in the international competition and they can win it. So we must help them win it. That is key. And for that, to the European market, pushing our research centers, which is what we have done since the 2019 quantum strategy, multiplying it at the European level and allowing them to move faster and stronger. And you can clearly see that behind this entire strategy, well, it is a strategy of independence that we are building for ourselves with the Europeans, but also with partners such as the Japanese, the Canadians, and the Gulf states. And in a way, it is this coalition of independence that we believe in. And behind all this, it is a real geopolitical strategy that we are pursuing. And obviously, to support this strategy, well, we must put in place protections. And the one that we strongly advocate, and we have started to introduce it, and thank our commissioner for that, is European preference. We have implemented it in areas that were under attack from international competition, but we also want it for our technologies. We must buy European everywhere, build European, and that's how we'll preserve our independence or regain it on the cloud. Won't matter where we were abandoned a few years ago by some. We're in the process of regaining it with Sectum Cloud by forcing us to have something that improves the system, but with preference for a European solution, with European security and sovereignty elements, which also allows us to be in the race and put our stakeholders of OVH and and others the heart of the battle. And so alongside this policy of innovation and acceleration, we must have a policy of European preference, of legitimate protection, because that's what the Americans and the Chinese are. And these are the two legs on which we rely. And then to conclude, I would say that all this acceleration requires continuing to think about the future more quickly. You think about it every day. Hey, it feeds me, it feeds us. We created a France 2030 after COVID, which I think was a very good idea that helped accelerate many of the projects you are working on. And basically, for the 50 France 2030s, what I asked the government to do was not to celebrate the 50 2030s, but to accelerate. So from now on, we're going to mandate a group of experts. I don't like the term experts because I often say that experts are experts on the world that exists, on the world that is past. No, they are pioneers, pathfinders, people who will help us identify what is emerging so that we can define the new major directions to go beyond France 2030, and in the fall be able to decide on a series of new investments for the future. And that is what we need. And so basically, and I will stop there, I have just one message. You have done a fantastic job in the last 10 years. You have changed the face of France. You have allowed the country to begin reindustrializing. You have restored its pride. You have restored its territories, because it is everywhere in France. In all the territories, thirds of these creations that I mentioned, this is outside the Paris metropolitan area. You have restored pride and hope everywhere in the territory. You have put France at the heart of the European and global innovation map. So thank you and congratulations too. You can be extremely proud of yourselves, but as you can see, we still have a continent to conquer because everything is accelerating around us. So let's not lose ourselves in navel gazing or doubt. We don't have time. You can be proud of what you have done, but I have only one message. No matter what happens, I will be by your side here until the very last second. But I will be by your side beyond that, breathing this spirit with you. Don't give up. You are strong. You can be proud. The world is accelerating. So accelerate and go even faster and bring the entire country into this movement of innovation. And we will do it with our French perspective, with our strength, which is to do it in the service of a certain idea of humanism, certain idea of justice. Everything we have done for 10 years, but don't give up. We will conquer for France, for Europe, and we will be at the heart of the next 10 years. So happy birthday to Viva Tech for these 10 years. Happy birthday to French Tech. Happy birthday to everyone. Be proud and thank you. But above all, go for it. Dare, never give up. Long live the Republic, and long live France. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to proceed with the group photo. So I am going to ask you to step back a little towards the stage, and there you go, Mr. President, you are coming down. I invite the pool of photographers to join me on stage with the official photographer. So exceptionally, ladies and gentlemen, on the side to my right and to my left, please move closer to the center for the photo. Thank you very much. There you go. So there you are, move closer because we won't see you. So don't hesitate. There you go. There you go. Same thing. Move closer. The photographer here needs to see you. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, Mr. Chancellor, dear Friedrich, Mr. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, ambassadors, and journalists, thank you all for being present here at Les Invalides today Indeed, in Paris, we held a new meeting of the heads of state and government of the 37 countries that now make up the coalition of the willing. Moldova and North Macedonia have joined us, which is a good thing. 37 European countries, but I must not forget our Canadian friends, as well as our friends from the Indo-Pacific region, from Japan to Australia and New Zealand. This meeting is the 16th, since the first one we held in February 2025 in Paris and London. It is part of a new sequence, a new moment, and has helped to amplify and accelerate a dual dynamic. First, on the military front, since Ukraine has largely regained the initiative, it has weathered this winter, which is difficult. It is regaining ground, and the challenges and difficulties are mounting for Russia on the military and economic fronts. The second dynamic is that of negotiation, where factors are aligning to strengthen the chances of a solid peace. Indeed, in Evian, during the G7, we achieved a reconvergence between European, Canadian, and American allies. We rebuilt unanimity at the European Council that followed in June, and this momentum was confirmed at the NATO summit in Ankara last week, both in terms of the diagnosis, to put it briefly, that time is not on Russia's side and that it cannot hope to achieve its objectives, and in terms of the consequences that must be drawn from this. To impose an end to the fighting and relaunch negotiations, this new moment leads us with today's mobilization to several guiding principles that I wanted to come back to. First, we are determined to continue to consolidate our unity among allies in order to converge towards a fair and a just and lasting peace. Second, to do this, we are also determined to continue to support Ukraine today even more quickly and more strongly. And this summit, this coalition, has been a moment of acceleration and implementation of the commitments made in recent months. This is true of the financial support that was agreed with the European loan of 90 billion euros, joined by the United Kingdom. I thank the Prime Minister for the commitments made at Ankara, 70 billion euros, with the first disbursements that have just taken place. We also discussed military support, and it is in this spirit that we approved early this afternoon with President Zelensky a roadmap between our two countries implementing what had been agreed in principle last November for our bilateral cooperation on anti-aircraft defense, on the one hand, with the acquisition by Ukraine of a first series of new generation batteries that will complement the systems that will be delivered within the coming weeks. And on the modernization of the Ukrainian fighter jet, on the other hand, with the project to acquire 16 Rafale Salis and the weapon system that accompanies them, the first of which are due to fly in Ukrainian airspace in 2029, with training that will take place in the coming months. Radar systems are also being transferred, additional missiles, and we have agreed on the licensing of new A2SM Aster capabilities that will allow us to produce these capabilities much more quickly with our Ukrainian friends and on Ukrainian soil. Several other more confidential elements were also agreed between our two countries. Ukraine has immediate needs partners, particularly in the area of anti-ballistic missiles. Ukraine is participating in this bilateral contribution. However, at the initiative of President Zelensky, we assembled a new coalition earlier, the anti-ballistic coalition, totaling 8 countries. All of us were there, along with our industrialists, which has enabled and will enable Ukraine's anti-ballistic missile defense to be accelerated in a very concrete way. First, by continuing to provide Ukraine with the capabilities it needs to defend its skies, civilian populations, and critical infrastructure. Second, by authorizing the production of new capabilities under license, as President Trump has already announced regarding the production of interceptors for Patriot batteries. As I said, we have decided to do this for the Aster missiles that are the systems we are developing with Italy. And several others have decided to license them in this direction. But also to pool our forces and expertise to develop new capabilities. This is the purpose of the Freya project, which by aggregating the building blocks of our countries and several of our manufacturers will make it possible to aggregate a common offer and accelerate the protection of Ukraine in this area. In a context where Russia is seeing its economic vulnerabilities increase, particularly due to the measures we have adopted so far, we are also determined to exploit them by increasing the pressure we are exerting. And this is the very area on which we have made progress today, through our sanctions and the fight against the ghost fleet. Our sanctions are what we are supporting with the 21st package of sanctions of the European Union, which will target in particular the banking and financial sector, the military industrial complex, and stakeholders involved in any circumvention. Here too, I would like to thank our British friends for their perfect coordination with the European Union. In this regard, I would also like to welcome the decisions recently taken by the American administration, such as exceptional regimes on fossils from Russia and those taken at the initiative of several American senators to strengthen these American sanctions. Uta, allow me at this moment to pay tribute to the memory of Senator Lindsey Graham, who played an important role in recent years alongside Ukraine, the values that bind us, and the transatlantic link. At the same time, we are strengthening our means of combating the ghost fleet, another means of pressuring Russia. The boarding of the ship Delivé by the French Navy on 1 June, France's fifth naval arrest operation since the end of 2025, demonstrates our commitment. I would also like to acknowledge the work of our Sweden, the United Kingdom, and the contributions of our British, Spanish, and several other friends. This is an effort that we will continue. Our chiefs of staff have outlined the arrangements for other countries to join, and we will continue to organize ourselves to this end. A ministerial level meeting will be held in Paris next September. Finally, we are determined to continue our work on security guarantees, which will be the backbone of a just and lasting peace. As you may recall, more than 6 months ago, on January 6, the Paris Declaration on Robust Security Guarantees for a Strong and Lasting Peace allowed all coalition countries to endorse our common strategy that also established operational convergence among us, all with the United States present on that occasion, for a shared vision of security guarantees and a common organization. The first pillar is long-term military support for the Ukrainian armed forces. The second pillar is the reassurance force, the mission to support Ukraine, the MNFU deployed at sea and in the air on Ukrainian soil when a ceasefire is concluded. Its purpose is purely defensive. It does not in any way constitute a ceasefire monitoring mechanism. However, the demonstration of our commitment would ensure that the cessation of hostilities is irreversible, and it aims to take action to support the generation of Ukrainian forces, provide reassurance, and enable very concrete progress for the country, such as the resumption of air links or maritime traffic. And then thirdly, measures implemented to prevent a new attack by Russia and to respond if Russia decides to attack again. These response measures could be military, economic, and political. These guarantees, as I said, are defensive and in no way escalatory. We took this step last January after intensive planning was finalized under the authority of our chiefs of staff. The coalition, therefore, has this multilateral force for Ukraine now ready to act. The headquarters of this force organizes this planning and transforms it week after week into concrete operational commitment. In this regard, we have decided today on the exercises that will be held in the coming months. They were officially presented to us earlier. They will therefore be deployed in Ukraine's neighboring countries to validate our deployment plans and demonstrate that we are ready, determined, and credible on land, in the air, and at sea. I want to say it clearly, supporting Ukraine is an investment in our own security. And those who think that this war will stop at the Ukrainian borders if we give in or seek ways to accommodate the aggressor are mistaken. The history of our continent has taught us the cost of giving up in the face of aggression, and we are making that mistake again. I want to address the Europeans directly. What we're building here is not just for Ukraine. This demonstrates that Europe can assume responsibility for its own security, defend its interests, and act with unity, with strength, and without being naive about Moscow's intentions. This coalition is the most concrete proof of this. And it is a great honor for France tomorrow not only to hold the traditional parade of our armed forces, but also to join in a parade of all our partners in the coalition of the willing and our Ukrainian friends who will march with us and illustrate this strategic awakening and our unity. Mr. President, Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Prime Minister, dear friends, I want to reiterate this here. We are all fighting together for peace and security on our continent and stand alongside the Ukrainian people, for whom we have esteem and friendship. And having you at our side, Mr. President, is a great source of pride. Thank you to my two colleagues for being here, and I would like to reiterate that the credibility of our commitments has been further strengthened today during the summit, which has enabled us to make things concrete to accelerate our defense and our commitment alongside Ukraine. This will be forcefully demonstrated tomorrow during the parade. And allow me to have a final word for our colleague, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has done us the honor of being at our side. In a few days, he will hand over the baton in a spirit of continuity. But I would like to reiterate to him how proud we were to work with him and how much this coalition of the willing owes him a great deal, and the commitment of Europeans alongside Ukraine owes him a great deal. It was a great source of pride to be with you, Prime Minister. Thank you. I will now hand over the floor, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, dear Emmanuel. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you for our meeting and for the concrete results. The important results, and what is particularly important, is this atmosphere among all our allies. We talked about it today. This is very important for supporting Ukraine and for the security of the whole of Europe. I am delighted to see you today here, as Emmanuel just said, and we subscribe to these words of respect spoken by Emmanuel regarding you personally, your people, and I would like to say that today you have drawn attention to the fact that this is your last coalition of the willing, and I thank you for your consistent position. And under your presidency, we signed a memorandum with the participation of our countries when the contingent will be placed in Ukraine. And it is precisely for the volunteers who seek to guarantee security and stability after this war. Then there have also been resolute steps that have been taken to strengthen the whole of Europe. Thank you once again, Friedrich. Dear Chancellor, thank you very much for your support. Sir, dear guests, dear journalists, we are grateful for your attention to Ukraine and your respect for our country. It is very symbolic to emphasize that it is precisely in France, altogether, Ukraine, France, Great Britain and Germany, together with other European partners, Italy, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, Spain, representatives of the European Union and NATO, that we have launched the anti-ballistic missile program. This is an anti-ballistic missile system and free that can become one of our common contributions to strengthening European security and preventing conflicts. You all see what a threat ballistic missiles pose in this war against Ukraine waged by Russia. Ballistic missile strikes have become the last resort for Russia. That they are the ultimate means of prolonging this bloody war. During all these years of large-scale warfare, Putin has sought to break us. Each and every one of us, Ukraine, our motivation, and the spirit of our peoples. The front does not allow us to do this, and this year our positions, Ukraine's positions at the front, are stronger than in previous years of this war. Emmanuel is absolutely right to say that we must determine What are the things that today, in these conditions on the front, can support us and allow us to put pressure on Russia in order to achieve diplomatic means? Putin has tried several means of pressure. To killing, destroying ballistic missiles is precisely the means that, to tell the truth, we have difficulty encountering. We also see in the Middle East and in the Gulf the misfortune that ballistic strikes can cause, especially when these strikes are coupled with the drones. Ukraine has been defending itself against this for years now, and literally every day we need new missiles, interceptors for anti-ballistic systems. Today, Europe has several means of defense. First of all, the American Patriot systems and the interceptors that go with them. France is developing its own anti-ballistic missile system together with Italy. There are also air defense systems, and we are grateful to Germany for this system. The difficulties with American systems are obvious. Today, production is increasing, but there are not many of them. Don't worry. The president has said there will be many more of these missiles, but the United States must better support its partners and protect itself, and therefore see what is happening in Ukraine in this large-scale war between Russia and Ukraine. We are grateful to all our partners who are helping us with anti-ballistic missiles, both through the PEEA program and bilaterally. We thank you, dear friends, France, Germany, and Great Britain. However, today in Ukraine, we do not have an instrument to shoot down ballistic missiles. This is a fact, and it is the truth. That's why we launched a new anti-ballistic program that involves coordination of political, government, and industrial dimensions that will produce a mass-produced anti-ballistic weapon. The systems and missiles that go with it. We have named this program FRIA, and today we had the first founding meeting of this anti-ballistic coalition, and I thank you, Annie, for your support. It is important that European representatives are present, and that the European companies that produce these critical systems, Thales, DL Defense, SAB, Convair, Defense, Aerospace, Vibel, Leonardo, SE, MBDA, Safran, and Destinus, and the others. Thank us for being here today. We all have very important components. We have missiles in Ukraine, but they are only elements of the system. Together, over the next 12 months, we can build this anti-ballistic missile, this system, ARO, that will be mass-produced, that will cover the deficit, that will not be expensive. Europe to provide anti-ballistic weapons and therefore share them throughout the world.